Well, welcome to the Small Talk podcast. Today, we're talking about investing in real estate. We have Rachel Kokosinski, Jim Hocking, and David Gregory from the team, who are all real estate agents who have helped investors buy rental properties, and some of us actually own rental properties. So thanks, guys, for being here on the podcast, and excited to kind of take a deep dive into real estate investing and how we can help our clients. So first, Jim, what makes Grand Rapids an appealing area for people to invest in?
The downtown residential neighborhoods, there's a lot of homes and a lot of stuff to do. So, for example, you look at the Medical Mile, which is a massive, medical facility. And there's a lot of those, neighborhoods right around there house the nurses and resident doctors and all of that. So, that's mostly Heritage Hill. So if you have an investor looking in Heritage Hill at a 4-unit, there's a good chance that there's probably going to be some medical staff knocking on the door and trying to rent in there. So.
How's the inventory been in the Grand Rapids area for multi-units lately?
Multi-units, it was down for a while. Everything is down, but I usually see anywhere between 25 and 40 multifamily units at any given time in the city of Grand Rapids, it's decent. It's pretty balanced right now. If you're an investor looking to get into multifamily investing, right now is a great time just because there is decent inventory and there's almost no competition.
So you actually are a multifamily owner, right? So what criteria are you looking for when buying a multifamily home?
I think multi-units as opposed to single family units, obviously more bang for your buck there. And split utilities are a good thing because then the utilities are on the tenant as opposed to the owner paying for utilities.
Sure.
And washer dryer is big.
What about area? What areas are you seeing that are full of multi-unit homes and maybe have a easier time renting them out?
Yeah, I think so anywhere near colleges, downtown area, the Heritage Hill area is really popular.
Does bus route matter?
Yeah, bus route's a big deal too. Public transit is a big deal for college students.
Sure.
And so, yeah, but Northwest side or the West side by Grand Valley, walkability is huge.
Okay.
And there's some great neighborhoods near the downtown area that are good for that.
Awesome. So, Rachel, you're actually out on the lake shore.
Yes.
What areas are people looking in for real estate investing on the lake shore?
Certainly. Muskegon is still a hot market. We have the beauty of having lower price points to purchase, but we still have strong rents, which is a really nice thing for an investor.
Sure.
We have had quite a few more multifamilies coming on the market lately, so we've been seeing more of those. I've also seen several investors liquidating their portfolios of single-family homes. And personally, I have owned 5 long-term rentals in the Muskegon area and found them to be really affordable and a great way to improve your ROI, your return on investment.
Awesome. So as real estate agents, we're dealing with a lot of different people. Jim, where are you seeing your clients come from, or what type of people are you dealing with that are investing in real estate? Do you have people locally or coming from other areas?
Yeah. I've got a guy who he owns a bunch of Airbnbs in Cozumel and Mexican tourist destinations, but he wants to start buying up here. And
okay.
I have people from out of state who I've done, video tours, entire transactions without even meeting them in person. A lot of the local people that I meet are usually on the younger side, like early 20s.
Okay.
Because obviously they're still young. They've got stars in their eyes. They're excited about it, and a lot of them end up going through with it. Like one of the guys that I've helped, he's 25 years old. He owns 5 or 6 properties already.
That's the dream. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So he's doing really, really well. And I've helped people all the way up into the really experienced investors who own 50, 60, 70 properties, and some guys who have real portfolios that they're working with. So
okay. Where are your people coming from, Rachel?
Have quite a few from Grand Rapids actually that started looking out at the lakeshore because a couple of reasons. There have been some new rules on short-term rentals here in Grand Rapids. So we don't really have any set rules in Muskegon. So that is appealing to people who want to have a short-term rental at a lower price, but still make a decent nightly rental. Also, just in general, like I said earlier, we still have strong rent, even though the price point to entry is still low for investors.
Sure.
So, but I've worked with people both local and as far away as California, looking out here. So, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that people from California would come all the way to little West Michigan and invest in real estate here, right?
It's true. I actually was in California at the time I started investing.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
that was one of the reasons is when you can pick up a house for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, it's almost comical in California dollars. And so it was pretty exciting to start building a portfolio that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on, what multifamily versus single family? Like, Dave, what are you seeing the pros and cons investing in a multifamily versus a single family?
Well, when I started buying rental properties, it was multifamily. And the pro to that, I think it's a great way to get started because as an owner occupant, you can get started and have your mortgage covered mostly.
Yeah. Are you seeing like people buying a duplex and living in one side and renting out the other?
Yeah, exactly. And then a couple years down the road, if you build some equity, you can take that over and buy your next one and then move out, and then you'll get double the rent. Rents are constantly increasing. Single family properties are great in certain neighborhoods as well. They appeal to, maybe different types of renters in different areas, but in downtown areas, they're great for, for tenants or.
Do you feel like you get longer term tenants in a single family?
Yeah, I guess it really depends on the location. If you're in a downtown location where it's kind of near a college or like a lot of the multi-unit properties are,
awesome.
There might be similar turnover as opposed to like more of a single family ownership neighborhood.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So like Rachel, what would be the criteria that somebody should look for when maybe a short-term rental? Like, are you looking for multi-units, single families, lakefront properties in the middle of nowhere? Like what makes a good Airbnb rental?
So a good Airbnb rental is obviously one that people are excited to go to. Now, if it's in the middle of nowhere, you will attract people who want that type of experience. But generally, places where there are more tourist options. In Michigan, we obviously have seasons, and so that can impact your rental. The rental that I had over in Grand Haven was hugely popular from about April through October-ish, November, and then it got real quiet. Yeah. And I would get occasional weekends. But as an owner, if you balance that with using that time to, clean it, upgrade it, whatever you're going to do, you can make it work for you. But also, having things that people want to go to essentially are really key. And you have to think like the person staying there.
Yeah, that's good advice. So Jim, when you're helping somebody purchase a investment property, like what's some of the criteria that you use to evaluate it and determine if it's a good investment?
Condition is huge, obviously, and obviously price. But if we see a place that could potentially cash flow, regardless of what the rents are currently at or whether it's all occupied, when it comes to repairs, you don't want them to get into a place and be overwhelmed with repairs before improvements.
Sure.
Example,
having a plan in place to make the repairs and the budget to do that.
Exactly. Like you don't want someone getting into a place and realizing that they're in way over their head, and then they're either scraping by or they're having to offload it, which is never a good thing to do in the first year. But I have a really good example though. I helped a veteran purchase a duplex earlier this year. The the lease that was in place was covering 95% of the mortgage.
Wow.
So he spent all of his free time, like he would work 10 hours a day and then come home with more stuff from Home Depot. He's completely improved the top of his duplex while living there. And we're coming up on a year, so he's going to buy another one and repeat the process and put a tenant in there. But the rents from the downstairs unit have gone up $150 in a year and a half, and he's done some improvements on that unit too. Like while the people are living there, he has a good relationship with them. But we focused a lot on making sure that he was going to be able to make improvements that brought the equity up and brought the rents up, rather than having to buy it, like put on a new roof or put in a new furnace or do things that like the renters don't care about. Like no one's going to go into a place and say, oh, you have a brand new furnace. Awesome. I want to pay you another $150 a month for this place. So we made sure that all of the the main items were taken care of, and then he could just focus on the aesthetics and, just the interesting things that people are going to actually be attracted to the unit for.
Yeah. So as a real estate agent, you're helping them come up with that plan to make sure they are making a solid investment.
Yeah.
So awesome. So David, you're helping people to invest in real estate. Like what is the process? So you're helping them find a good property, and you're maybe helping them through some of the processes and making good decisions. But like what happens after we find the property?
The most important critical part of the short-term plan is to get inspections done.
Okay.
You want to make sure that everything top to bottom is, worth moving forward on.
Okay.
And that you're not going to be in over your head, and you know exactly what to prepare for.
And are you like helping your clients come up with estimates and a plan, also like calling contractors and really figuring out what they are getting into?
Yeah, and it's not uncommon to maybe get a quote or two on some things before, making a decision to move forward. We have many references that we can refer to for pretty much anything as far as, mechanicals, roof, just upgrading things.
Okay. So, Rachel, when you're helping somebody with a short-term rental, like what are some of the things that you factor in to help your clients determine if they're making a good investment?
Sure. So one thing I always do is I talk to the other agent to find out what the rental history has been and to try to understand how that previous owner was able to, garner that rent amount. And if there are some things that the new owner maybe can do that would increase that. For example, if they add a bedroom somehow, can they bump up the rental nightly price? Or I looked at one house that had a very boring backyard. And I talked with the client about, if you put a fire pit back here and you made it really welcoming and interesting for people to go and hang out, that would be appealing. Or maybe a hot tub, for example, something that would attract more people to the property.
Okay.
So looking for that, but always making sure that it's going to be profitable for them. We don't want them to be losing money at the beginning because number one, they're probably not going to buy it. And number two, we don't want our clients to be behind, as Jim mentioned, right from the beginning. So,
So we got traditional renting where we get month-to-month renters, and then we have Airbnb or short-term renting. Jim, are you working with anybody that does flips or how do you help somebody through that process?
Yeah,
where do you look for that?
I've helped a handful of people with flips, and they can be tough in this market because there's limited inventory already and prices are up, especially for those who are purchasing with a mortgage. They have a lot less room to work. But then if you're paying with cash, and you're competing with other buyers, you can't pay too much, or else no matter how many improvements you do, you're not making any money. So the flip game right now, and at least in Grand Rapids, is pretty difficult because if you find a really great property that's priced accurately, and that's going to attract a lot of interest. Like, your listing in Byron Center a couple of years ago, it was like 3 acres for $100,000 or something. That house, there were, over 100 showings in a couple days and 30 or 40 offers. Like, And I had a cash buyer for it. They were builders, like they had every like shortcut that you could possibly think of. They could have done every bit of the work by themselves with their team and saved all of that extra money, and they were still not able to make the numbers work. So yeah, right. What I see right now as far as flips go, I mean, if you can get into a place and find the ugly duckling house, maybe that doesn't need to be torn down to the studs and rebuilt, but something that is super out of date and no one wants, you can get it for a good price and put in, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 into the main features and probably have a successful flip on it.
Awesome. So, David, being part of Keller Williams and the Smallegan real estate team, do you have access to any off-market opportunities, or how often do you hear about those?
Yeah, we hear about those weekly in our weekly meetings in the office.
Okay.
So, no, that's a good opportunity. Sometimes sellers don't want to put their house on the market. They don't want to go through the hassle. Maybe they need to unload it. Whatever reason, those opportunities come up and we share them within our network.
Okay.
For sure.
And you've actually been successful in calling for sale by owners and expired listings. Are you able to make those connections for people when maybe possibly looking at investment properties?
Yeah, I've had some success with meeting with some folks that were selling by owner. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Finding a rental property is one thing, right? I think the next part of it is financing. Not everybody has a truckload of cash
Right.
waiting. So, like, what are some different financing programs or opportunities, Rachel, that investors might have to purchase a property?
There's quite a few, actually. One is called a DSCR loan, which is a debt service coverage ratio, which is a fancy way of saying you're looking at the rents and using that as your income as you're qualifying for a loan.
Okay.
And there's also coming next month, the Fannie Mae is changing the rules for investors. If it's an owner-occupied multi-unit, you can now get in with like a conventional style loan with only 5% down.
Interesting.
So I think that is going to be huge. But the critical thing I think about finding financing is making sure you talk to a lender who knows investing. Not every lender understands all of the different products that are out there for an investor or how to get creative. So I always encourage people to talk to someone who knows about investing. And if they don't have experience, you probably want to find a different one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Jim, any tips for a first-time investor? Do you really need 20% down? Like, what are the things that, like, maybe a first-time home investor would need to look at?
Like the VA buyer I mentioned earlier, he went into a duplex with zero down. And we had his closing costs covered by the seller. It was a non-competitive time in the market, and he was able to go in absolutely no money down and just get to it. But I've helped plenty of people get into a home with an FHA like 3.5% down as long as they're in one unit for a year. And I mean, I had one guy who he didn't actually live there, but he kept it vacant and he worked on it while he waited to turn it over. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of programs out there that people don't really know about, and especially if you're getting into a place that needs some work, maybe hold on to some of the cash that you would have put down, because the difference in your mortgage payment between if you do 3.5% down and 20% down, that's 16.5%. Like it is impactful, but if you hold on to that cash, you can increase your equity, put some work into the place, and get your rents up. Like I think that's a better short-term solution for the long-term, like payoff.
Yeah. So, David, are you familiar with the BRRR, the BRRR method?
Yeah.
Like, what's that all about?
Buy, rent, renovate, repeat. Buy, renovate, rent, repeat. Yeah.
Lots of R's, right?
Yeah. BRRR. No, it's a great method, and it's been around a while, and it still works. So the idea is you buy a property, undervalue in the market because it needs work, then you take that and you fix it up for your first property, get it in good condition, rent it out, and then take the equity out of that property.
So refinance?
Refinance and roll into the next property.
Awesome.
And just keep it going. And it's a great way to get started. And that's why a lot of young investors I've worked with mine have all been under 30. They're aware of that and they're getting into it, and they're seeing success with it.
So what about like a first-time investor and they don't have a book of contacts or people that they know that can do the work? Do you have that as a real estate agent, like a list of contacts that you could help maybe an investor put together a plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the rental game for 10 years. I have my own catalog of contacts, and then as a team here, we have a great group of contacts as well. So there's plenty of options. We're advisors, so my job, our jobs are to advise our clients, and you want to go to somebody that's going to be able to point you in the right direction, give you the right information, and help you in the process. We're not just somebody that opens the door and says, "Figure it out yourself." So
That's good. It sounds like they'd be in good hands.
yeah.
So we have the property, we have the financing, we've now got it fixed up. In the short-term world, do you typically advise your clients to self-manage, or do you do a property management company?
So with short terms, it sort of depends on the person's interest and how much they want to be involved in it. I actually had at one point a short term in California and also one in Michigan at the same time. I managed them remotely. It's very easy to do, and I can talk to clients about how easy it is to just use the platforms. Now, of course, there's always a give and take with that. You end up giving up some of your profit to those platforms. Some people who get many short-term rentals will actually create their own booking system, and they may be more involved. But the typical person that just wants that second home but wants to make money on it, you can easily do it with the platforms that are out there.
Okay. And do you help your clients kind of navigate that, or do you?
I mean, I'm not going to do it for them, but I could certainly give them some professional advice and my own experience for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Jim? With maybe a short, like a regular monthly rental, like do you advise property management, or do you suggest like self-managed?
Depends on the buyer. I've helped people that would be more than capable of, having difficult conversations or going through the eviction process or doing all these other things. And I had a buyer this year. She bought a 3-unit, like in one of the typical neighborhoods in Grand Rapids, and I said, hey, maybe you should think about property management. The reason being, she is too nice for her own good. Like, she would get steamrolled by the wrong tenant. So I said, hey, like it would be great for you to learn the business and to learn how to do that. But if you had to do this, and we had to, one of the tenants was month to month. So, we had them removed at the very, we gave them the 60 days and all of that. But I was like, could you have done that yourself? And she was like, absolutely not. And I said, okay, then here's 3 different phone numbers from, recommended, property managers in the area. Give them a call and see where you end up. But yeah, it really depends on the owner.
Hey, David, so what are some of the other common challenges that landlords or investors face when renting properties?
Finding new tenants, going through the whole process of application, reviewing application, selecting tenants. That can be an overwhelming process. And then just the 10 p.m. text message, hey, there's a leak or something's going on, that sort of thing. You never know exactly what to expect, I guess. Personally, I've always had a pretty good experience with my property. It's, and I manage it myself. It's pretty low maintenance as it is. But just keeping up on things, making sure tenants are happy.
So it sounds like you're going to reduce the amount of problems you have by putting time into finding a good tenant to begin with, right?
I think so. And I think it really, like, back to what Jim said, like, I'm the kind of guy that can kind of go easy with things and it doesn't affect me as much. So I can take what it takes and deal with it on my own. But if it's, like a property management company, it could be a good solution for certain people.
Sure. Yeah. Different interests, right? You gotta like what you do. And if it isn't, in your wheelhouse, finding a team to help you kind of through the process, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I would see it from like the owner standpoint. If you've got one property and 4 doors, you're dealing with 4 personalities, but then you've worked your way up to 10 properties, and now you've got 30 or 40 doors and all of those personalities. Like now you're not only juggling all of the financial and like the financial aspects, the maintenance aspects, but you're dealing with a bunch of different types of people. So after a while, it might be a very wise decision to involve somebody or even hire it in-house, like build your own property management company and find someone who's great at doing that and having those conversations and getting things done. But personally, if I was holding on to a lot of property with something like that, I would want it off my plate. I'm not I do not have a logistical mind as far as things like menial tasks and just if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. So I'll hand that off to somebody else, take my money. But that's.
I think one other point too to make clear is when you're outlining a lease, and this took me a few years to figure out, make sure that any possible issue that could happen is outlined in the lease as this is not an option for this property. One instance was I had a kid that would store his motorcycle in the house, and it leaked gas like in the bedroom. I don't know how he got it in the house, but he got it in the house and he stored it over winter and it leaked gas. So now I put no fuel containing appliances or anything allowed in the house. And it's clearly
some stuff would be common sense, right?
Yeah. So there's like a list now that started like this, but it's now super long of what is not allowed in the house. So just having a clear lease and going over it, before they sign is important.
You should have ChatGPT go over your leases and add some more stuff in there.
Anything and everything.
Yeah.
One other thing too I would bring up, and we talked about having out-of-state investors, and some different townships or cities will require an in-town contact for an investment property.
Okay.
So like for the city of Muskegon, for example, that's why I had it managed professionally when I owned them out of state, is because I needed to have that local person that they could call. So you do have to check those rules too. So.
Yeah. So how do you make sure you have like a steady stream of tenants? There's lots of different properties you can buy, but what are some of the things that you can look for to make sure that we have low vacancy?
Obviously, you want to have a safe feeling house, something that, a person is not going to be wondering for their own safety in that area, even if it's not maybe in the best part of town, but just that the house itself has that secure feeling.
What are some of the ways you can do that?
Making sure all the windows close properly, making sure doors and locks work correctly, those sorts of things will help to encourage people to feel secure there.
Yeah.
Deep cleaning. Yeah. The amount of times you walk through a multifamily home, vacant or not, if I can run my finger along the windowsill and it's black, like they're probably not as interested. But sellers and listing agents, I think, downplay the efficacy of a deep clean way too much because, a really, really, really clean house will sell faster and for more than one that is ratty and disgusting and has cobwebs in every, windowsill. So
do you bring white gloves with you on your showings?
Nope,
or?
I get my hands dirty.
Nice. Nice. That's good to hear.
I have a lady I made friends with, and she cleans every time somebody moves out. She'll clean the units. She loves to clean, and she does a deep clean. And another thing to make a steady flow of tenants is making sure it looks pretty. Like there's a lot of properties that are aren't that great looking.
Common areas
they
and
take
whatnot.
An old 3,500 square foot house and they put 4 or 5 units in it, and it just looks weird. And so, having great kitchen, clean bathroom, and just making it look inviting, just like you would stage a house, when you're selling it.
Okay.
That's huge too. And also parking is a big deal too. You got to think about that as well. So make sure that's available.
When buying a property, does it make more sense to buy near like you said earlier, bus routes, or like are there other areas that do have higher rental.
Sure. I mean, I think if you figure out what are the hot spots in town, where do people want to be?
Yeah.
You know, you want to probably be walking distance to those if possible. Those are going to be attractive for college students. It's going to be a different thing that they want to be close to than a family, for example. Maybe a property by a park might be more appealing to families, you know, different things like that you can look at as popular things. Obviously, things like being by a railroad track or really loud traffic, those are going to be detracting for people. But is there a way that you could mitigate that by maybe having better windows or something?
Sure. So we've talked about buying. We've talked about pretty much the whole process in buying and fixing and renting investment properties. What about selling them? When is a good time to sell a rental property?
Like, if you look at data suggests that obviously, like, you know, the warmer months, we're in Michigan, like, warmer months are better times. Like, I mean, I saw plenty of, I toured a $650,000 for a unit and it sold in a day and a half. Like, when I went to the showing, there were 7 buyers lined up with their agents and everything. Like, it was a warmer month in a hot neighborhood and it was a really well done property. Like, I mean, yeah, if you need to sell for some reason, if you've got a reason to sell, then I mean, get rid of it. But if you can hold on to it, if it's a multifamily, I mean, go when things.
Cash flows. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are there strategies when selling a rental property, like to, I guess, limit the amount of showings or like not disturb the tenants as much?
Yeah, one that I've run into recently, or I've seen more and more. And the first time I saw this was a few years ago. I even remember the agent and the house and the neighborhood and everything. But what he did, he said, if like we're doing an open house and that's it. We're doing one open house Saturday from 10 to 1, and like when I showed up, there was a line down the street. Like it was all the way out. So you'd go in as a group upstairs, and once the other people were going downstairs in the back to the next unit, the people would go up the stairs, and it was just all the way through. Yeah. Like, you know, give yourself 5 or 10 minutes to get through and then get out. And I've seen it more often recently where, you know, like, because tenants like it, they get out of the house for a morning or an afternoon and it's done. They don't have to deal with 24 or 48 hour notice, you know, or the ever awkward walking through the property with a buyer while they're sitting there in their pajamas, like eating cereal or something. Yep. That's, I mean, I've gotten threatened with violence from tenants before.
Yeah, walking into the room and they're still sleeping.
Or I knocked on a door once at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, and the dude swings the door open and smoke starts billowing out. Like there's party lights going off inside. He's like, who are you? I was like, I'm here to show the property. He's like, oh, we've been partying all night, man. And I was like, we're just gonna get out of here.
Here for the party.
Yeah, they were still going. Props, but yeah, I've had some. Yeah, it's always some of the best showing stories I have are from multifamilies.
Yeah, I like the concept and the idea of a one open house, 1 day availability, or schedule showings just 1 day, because, you know, it's frustrating when we're trying to schedule showings with our buyers into these properties and they have a 24-hour or 48-hour notice. And even then they're not always approved. And it's just,
or you can see this unit, but not this unit. Yeah.
And that's a lot of cases too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Rachel, what are you seeing on the lakeshore?
Similar things. I have noticed there's been a lot more effort by other agents to put particular times that you can see the property, like maybe Friday 9 to 12 and Saturdays 1 to 3 or something. And that can be somewhat frustrating for buyers. But on the other hand, it's easier if we know we have access at that time. And I would echo what they said. I've walked into some strange situations. Many times the tenants either are completely unaware that there's going to be a showing or have ignored any kind of request for such a showing. So it does get kind of frustrating. So I think as an agent representing a seller, I would definitely address that and make sure we had a solid plan.
Yeah, make sure you have your tenants on board too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you can do to maximize your resale value when selling an investment property? So staging, presentation's one thing. What about like preparedness of documents and having a clear profit and loss statement? Do you see that is a benefit when selling?
We need a rent roll. We need to know, have the tenants that have been there been paying? Are they paying on time? Are they staying? Many times I have to try to find out, even just from the tenant themselves, are you planning to stay? Nobody seems to know. The other thing that's very frustrating is an agent that's not investor savvy who prices a property too high based on the rents is going to really struggle to sell it. And that's where having some knowledge about, how ROI works for investors. Investors will buy things all day long if the numbers make sense. If the property is costing them money to own it, they're not going to take a look at it. And so I find that to be really frustrating, that having a really solid price conversation with your seller is going to be important.
Oh, I've always found it fascinating because I'm big on marketing. But I've always been just amazed at how the presentation of multifamily homes versus single family homes, like there's this massive disparity. Yeah. I mean, the worst of the worst photos come from multifamilies. Like just, I don't even know how these people get the low quality photos that they can get with smartphones right now. It's like they walk through there with a like point and shoot camera from 2001 or something, and just take a couple photos really quick. Nothing's ever clean. Stuff is always out. There's often people in the background. So there's not really any prep for that on a lot of stuff. So the multifamily homes that you see that are really, really well presented, I mean, props to those agents because they're going the extra mile. You've got a lot of people to coordinate to get that stuff done. Yeah. But like you're saying with the, P&Ls and all this rent rolls, I never, ever see that stuff. And when I ask for it, I have to pry it from their hands. It's because they either don't have it or the landlord doesn't have it because they never took good records or anything like that. I mean, it's a crapshoot a lot of the time. So you have to do a lot of research and a lot of praying that that everything is legitimate.
So you think a strong paperwork setup and rent rolls and could add value to a house,
if we opened the MLS and saw the seller's disclosure, lead-based paint disclosure, rent rolls, P&L, improvements, just everything, utility bills, that would make our lives and their lives a lot easier. That would be 10 less phone calls and emails. We would be able to get all that stuff over to our buyers, go over it with them. Does this make sense?
Yeah, savvy investors going to pay attention to that stuff, right? And they're going to want that information when putting together their own P&L. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have it readily available, it's going to make it harder for someone to determine what type of investment they're making.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and another thing too, and I'm sure David and Rachel can both agree with this, is if you own an investment property and something needs to get done, get it done right away. Like don't DIY it. Pay someone who knows what they're doing to get it done. Like I see so many just crappy DIY jobs on places, and it hurts at the end of it.
So personally, that means something to me also. When I have investment properties myself, when I'm doing repairs or upgrading a faucet, I'm not looking for the cheapest faucet. I'm looking for the one that has the best reputation because I don't want it to fail in a couple of years, right?
Or you don't want to buy it twice.
Yeah. So there's a lot of truth to that. You guys definitely are working with a lot of investors, and what makes a good real estate investing agent versus just a regular real estate agent?
So it takes a different eye to look at a property for investing. You have to understand how to look at, again, that price to see, are they going to actually make money on those rents? What is the spread? Is it a tiny margin? Is it a larger margin? What can they do with that property? Also, I get asked all the time by investors about ARV, which is after repair value. So if they're buying something that needs repairs, they need to know for financing even what that property could be worth after they do that, so that they can show that they're going to get that equity back that they spend. The other thing too is, I think, again, you want to have somebody who understands how to read a P&L, how to look at a rent roll, how to look for problems like that. And I like to advise my clients to be able to pivot. If, for example, they buy a house that's going to be a short-term rental and all these rules come in, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
So I talk to them a lot about, okay, what's your backup plan? If this doesn't work, or we look at properties that, okay, if this doesn't work as a short term, you could easily make it a long-term rental, or, turn it in. Or can you add a bedroom somewhere and add value, things like that.
Okay. Anything you can add? Like what makes you the right agent for working with investors?
Yeah, I mean, it's when I'm working with even just a residential buyer who's looking for themselves, I'm not the agent that's focused on the features. I'm looking for the problems. So I mean, it translates very well for investors because I'm focusing on all of the problems, which there are usually very many in 120-year-old homes downtown. And I mean, that's going to help them realize that you're supporting them through their decision and making sure to point out every little thing, because that they need to be able to crunch those numbers and just make sure that they're not getting in over their heads.
Okay. David, anything you want to add to that?
I'll agree with Jim. We've been through enough. Like I've been through probably 40 inspections this year. Like we've seen it all. We know what to look for. We're not inspectors, we're not experts, but having somebody that is going to point out the things that be beyond the pretty that are going to be help them make wise choices.
Awesome.
Yeah, investors don't, I mean, you should care a little bit about what, like the kitchen looks like and all of that, but that's usually down the totem pole in terms of their priorities. They're looking at, whether or not it cash flows, or if the markets are at, or if the rents are currently at market or below market, and, where they can be in 5 years, things like that. It's a lot of projecting into the future.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great podcast, and I think we've answered a lot of questions. And if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest or expand your rental portfolio, reach out to our team. I'm Mike Smallegan. We have Rachel Kokosinski, Jim Hocking, and David Gregory. We'd all be happy to help you and answer any questions you have about investing in real estate. And until next time, invest wisely.